it's Dr. Kulberg again at Anxiety Experts. Don't forget to like us and subscribe to our channel for regular anxiety tips. Today we're talking about perfectionism. I'm not talking about the kind where you have high standards for your performance or behavior. I'm talking about something that really runs the person's life. It's important to remember that anxiety wants certainty above all else. Because anxiety wants certainty above all else, when someone is plagued with higher levels of anxiety, from the time they're a small person, they want to figure out the right way to do the thing they just learned or the right choice to make for a decision they're up against. It doesn't matter if they're coloring a coloring page at kindergarten or if they are deciding who to marry. They have the point of view that there's a right choice and a wrong choice, and they do not want to make the wrong choice. They have the feeling that whatever choice they make will lead to either eternal misery or eternal bliss, even though, of course, there is no right choice to make. All of life is guesses and estimates. We only make good enough choices. We don't make right or wrong choices. So the person with higher levels of anxiety is going over and over their work product or their performance in their mind, and they are trying to figure out for sure if they did it well, if they offended anyone, if they said it wrong, etc. This impacts their social relationships. It impacts their decisions about what to buy, who to date, when to break up. They want to send an email or a text perfectly. They do checking compulsions, going over and over that work product or that text or email or that school paper, trying to be 100% certain that they did it right, made the right decision, etc. Even though, as I said, we're all making good enough choices, not perfect choices. Even if we're making a choice to obey a religious principle, we are still making our good enough human choice that we hope is pleasing to God. So we are still doing our best to obey the principles and values that we hold dear, but we are still making our best guess at how to do that in a way that's consistent with our beliefs. You might ask, well, how do I know if it's perfectionism, if it's due to this common manifestation of obsessive compulsive disorder, or if it's just regular high standards for human behavior? How do I know? The way you know is anxiety. There will be nausea, heart racing, sweating, shallow breathing, numbness and tingling, or derealization and depersonalization that precedes your decision. You might often ask for reassurance about what choice you should make or how you should do something. You might ask over and over the teacher, what's the assignment, or is this a good enough draft, when 3 people you know without OCD aren't doing those things. You might be over preparing for exams. You might be having a lot of distress. When you've already finished studying, you feel like you should study more. The spikes of anxiety, the worry thoughts are all signs that it's more than just regular high standards for behavior. Another way to know if it's OCD instead of regular high standards for behavior is if you tend to ask someone else to make the decision for you. You're in the shoe store, you don't know which to pick, you're afraid that you're going to pick the wrong shoes, even though, of course, there's no wrong shoes to pick. There's just the ones you picked. If you don't like the shoes when you get home, you'll choose something else next time or return them and pick something else. But there are no right shoes to buy. But the way you'll know it's anxiety is if you ask the person who's with you to make the decision because you're afraid to make the wrong decision. This is a compulsion. It's a form of reassurance seeking, which is a ritual, and it will grow anxiety over time. Instead, we want to do what reasonable people without OCD do, make our best guess about the shoes, and then go home saying, maybe I'll like them, maybe not. I'll pick some more shoes next year, in a few months, if I don't like these. So what is the treatment for perfectionism? It's called exposure with response prevention therapy. It's the #1 treatment for all anxiety disorders. And of course, the way we want to use the ERP, or exposure with response prevention, for perfectionism is we want to do things the way a high achieving person with lower levels of anxiety would do them. We want to study about the amount for that exam the way a reasonable A student with lower levels of anxiety would study, or B student if that's our standard for ourselves. We don't want to study more than that. Same thing with decision making on Amazon Amazon about the shampoo you want to buy. We want to take the amount of time a reasonable person without OCD would take to shop for the shampoo. We might look at 2 or 3 kinds, and then we're going to make a guess and see how we like the shampoo when it comes in the mail. Same thing with submitting a work product. I'm going to spend the amount of time on a report that 3 people I know without OCD would spend doing this report. Then I'm going to press submit and say, maybe my report stunk, maybe not. No way to know until I get feedback, till I have real evidence telling me that my report was substandard. Same thing with questions on your mind about how you're doing at work. Rather than doing compulsions, seeking reassurance with your boss or your peers about your performance, you're going to wait till your next performance eval, and you're going to behave as if you're doing a great job until you have real present evidence that you've made errors and need to correct them. If you do get feedback that you're making errors, you'll correct them as best you can, apologize, and try to do better, like all reasonable people with lower levels of anxiety do. Because everyone makes mistakes at work. Everyone can get a bad grade on a test or project at school. Again, you're going to wait for real evidence that your work is slipping. You're not going to do compulsions, checking and rechecking the grades portal or asking for reassurance about repeated drafts that other people without OCD aren't asking for. If you need help learning how to master your perfectionism and live a more peaceful existence in your own mind, please reach out to anxiety experts for help. You don't have to live like that. Don't forget that you can master your perfectionism on telehealth using exposure with response prevention therapy, the #1 treatment for the whole anxiety spectrum.